Dave, what are your favorite lenses to adapt?
That's a great question. There are thousands of different models of film era lenses. Now, I haven't adapted and tested all of them, but over the decades, I have repaired, adapted, and tested many hundreds of different lenses. In this episode, we're going to review my favorite adapted lenses. I'll share with you my subjective opinion on these lenses. Now, you may disagree with me. You may have other favorite lenses of your own, and that's okay. At the end of this episode is a downloadable 3-page handout called Favorite Lenses to Adapt. You can download this and print it up, and all the lenses I talk about you'll find right on here. So let's get started with my top favorite lenses to adapt. Let's start with my all-time favorite lenses for adapting, the Zeiss ZF family of lenses. As you can see, these Zeiss ZF lenses are big, they're heavy, they're manual focus, but as you can see by these images that I've taken recently with my Zeiss ZF lenses, they make some of the best images that I've ever taken. The images that I take with these are sharp, colorful, they have a 3D pop to them, and the best bokeh I've ever taken. I get more keepers shooting Zeiss ZF lenses than I do with any other types of lenses. Now, there are 3 types of Zeiss ZF lenses. The real expensive ones, called Otis lenses, they cost over $2,500 for each lens. I've never shot a Zeiss Otis lens, just a little bit too expensive for me. The lenses that are priced in the middle are called Zeiss Milvus lenses, and you can buy them for around $750 to $1,500. And I have adapted and tested many of the Zeiss Milvus lenses. And finally, the cheapest Zeiss ZF lenses are the classic lenses. Here's 4 of them. They run from about $300 to around $1,000. And I have adapted and tested every one of the Zeiss classic lenses except for the 15mm one. Now, Zeiss made these Milvus and classic lenses in 2 mounts. A Canon mount, which they called the ZE mount, and the Canon mount, as you can see by the picture here, does not have an aperture ring. So you don't want to get that one for adapting. The other mount that they came in is the Nikon mount, which is called the Zeiss ZF mount. And this will fit on any Nikon camera. And these particular Zeiss ZF lenses are really easy to adapt because they've got a 46.5 flange focal distance, and they work great on dumb adapters, dumb lens mount adapters, smart lens mount adapters. I use them regularly on Metabone speed boosters, which we're going to talk about in a future episode, and they even lend themselves for permanent mount replacement. Here's a Pentax K mount that I sometimes remove the Nikon mount from my Zeiss ZF lens, put on a Pentax K mount, and then I can use them on a Pentax camera. So these classic lenses they're all built like a tank, and they're made to last for generations. I mean, you will pass these down to your children and your grandchildren if you take care of them. Now, as far as my favorite Zeiss ZF lenses go, you're looking at them right here. The 50-1.4 and the 85-1.4 Milvus. And on the classic side, my favorites are the 28mm f2, the 35mm f1.4, the 100mm f2 macro, and the 135mm f2 lens, which people call a quasi Otis. It's so good. So those are my favorites. Zeiss ZF lenses, one of the best lenses that there is to adapt. Another one of my favorite lenses are Leica R lenses, also known as Leitz, L-E-I-T-Z lenses. They're made in Wetzlar, Germany, and in Canada from 1964 to 2009. You can tell a Leica lens, a Leica R lens, because they have a little red ball on them. Little red ball. Sometimes it comes off and you have to glue it back on, but that's how you can tell a Leica lens. They have a very long focal flange distance of 47 millimeters, so they're really, really easy to adapt. And Leica R lenses have a premium build. The focus is silky smooth. The aperture clicks are smooth. And they produce images that are rich in color, maybe a little bit low in contrast. And they produce what is called the Leica look, the very desirable Leica look. At the end of this episode, I'll link to a gallery where you can see over 140 Leica R images. Now, Leica R lenses are much cheaper than the current Leica brand of lenses, which are called Leica M lenses. And 16 of the Leica lenses, including this one and this one, were designed by the legendary designer Dr. Walter Mandler. You could put basically all Leica lenses into two different categories: affordable ones that are under $500 and the more expensive ones that are over $1,000. The ones under $500 that I often recommend are the 135 millimeter f2.8 for about $250. And then another one of my favorites is the Leica R 50 millimeter f2 Summicron. And the 50 millimeter Summicron has more saturated colors than typical Leica lenses, and a lot of people like that. That particular lens goes for $300 to $400. And finally, the legendary, the best Leica R lens of them all, in most people's opinion, the 80 millimeter f1.4 Summilux lens. Here's a few pictures of both the Summilux lens and some photos that I took with it when I used to own it. And again, the 80 millimeter Summilux, the legendary Leica R lens, was designed, of course, by Dr. Walter Mandler. Leica R lenses are some of my favorites, and like this Leica brochure says, it's optical perfection. Another favorite lens of mine are Nikkor lenses. They were made from the 1960s until 2020 in Japan by the Nikon Corporation. Their flange focal distance is 46.5 millimeters, so they're really easy to adapt on just about any mirrorless camera using a inexpensive dumb adapter like this one right here, which costs about $20. Now, there are three different types of Nikkor lenses: non-AI, AI, and AIS. All three types are manual focus, and all three types have excellent image quality, but not quite up to the level of image quality that you get from Zeiss and Leica lenses. Now, the AI and AIS lenses are different from the non-AI because they have these two aperture tabs on their mount. Now, the non-AI lenses are really not very popular with people who own Nikon cameras because they only work in the manual shooting mode on Nikon cameras. But if you're adapting them on a mirrorless camera, it doesn't make any difference whether they're non-AI, AI, or AIS. So save yourself a bunch of money and get yourself a non-AI lens because they have basically the same optics in most cases as the AI and their AIS counterparts. Three of my favorite Nikkor lenses are the 105mm f2.5 lens. This is a classic portrait and bokeh lens, and it comes in non-AI, AI, and AIS. Another favorite is the 55mm f3.5 Micro-Nikkor lens, this one right here, and it's a non-AI lens. And another one of my favorites is the Nikkor H 28mm f3.5 non-AI lens. This wide-angle 28mm lens is the best wide-angle that I'm aware of for taking infrared photographs. There you have it. Nikkor lenses, non-AI, AI, AIS, some of my favorites. Excellent image quality, and they're very inexpensive. Another one of my favorite lenses are Pentax lenses. These film-era lenses are all manual focus, and they were built in Japan from the 1950s until the mid-1980s. They come in M42 mounts, and the newer ones have K mounts. And my favorites are the K, M, and A series Pentax lenses. These lenses have a 45.46 millimeter flange focal distance, so you'll be able to fit them on just about any mirrorless camera that you might have. These Pentax lenses are very popular with videographers because they say it gives their movies, their videos, a cinematic look. These are also very good for still photographers like me, but their image quality isn't quite up to the standards of Zeiss and Leica, but they're not far behind. The average price I pay for used Pentax lenses of these varieties are around $200 US. Some of my favorites include the 35mm f2.3 Auto Takumar. This is known for its bokeh. The 50mm f1.4 Super Takumar. This is the 8-element version. And my last favorite here is the 200mm f3.5 Takumar lens. Pentax lenses, a lot of bang for your buck. Well, there you have it. I've reviewed my favorite lenses from Zeiss, Leica, Nikkor, and Pentax. I would like to point out that in my downloadable exhibit called Favorite Lenses to Adapt, on page 3, I list 20 additional lenses that you also might want to consider. Buying a new lens to adapt is a big decision. Now, don't just go out and buy a lens because I like it. I'd like you to do your own research. You may want to do the type of lens research that I do. I have a 3-step process. Number 1, check out what the internet reviewers and blogs have to say. Number 2, go to Flickr.com and check out the photographs that lens is capable of producing. If you like a bunch of them, then maybe you might want to consider that lens. On Flickr.com, there's a search box on the upper right of every page. Type in the name of your lens and do a search. And finally, number 3, at the end of this course, in the resource links, I have posted 17 different hot links to resources that I go to help me select my next lens. So, good luck with your next lens purchase, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode.